I themed this day to talk about fear, the fear of God and physical fear. We began in our Bible class this morning discussing the fact that Christians need to be fearless and have fearlessness. It doesn't mean that we don't face the normal physical fears of everyday life. It doesn't mean that God will remove all of them so that we don't have to be afraid ever about anything. But fearlessness means that those things don't affect my spiritual condition. And I will be able to live my life not fearing the second death. I can be fearless. Tonight we're going to talk about what it means to take comfort or to rest in the fear of God. But this morning, to understand, we must fear God if we are not right with Him. Psychologists tell us that there are only two fears that people are born with, and every other one is inherited. And I looked up the phobia list, whether it is an actual psychologically approved, yes, these are real things or not. There's a big list of fears that people have, hundreds of them. But apparently we're only born with two. One is the fear of falling. The other is the fear of loud noises. Now, when we had Aubrey and Austin, I understood both of those. I had the fear of loud noises because Aubrey cried all the time. And Austin developed the fear of falling because I fell asleep while holding him and dropped him on the floor. So the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises all came together in the raising of Austin and Aubrey. That list of fears, in fact, I brought my bulletin article up here. If you haven't read it, I hope you will, because I couldn't even remember this one. I'm going to read it because it's the only way I could remember it, okay? This is the fear of long words. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. That's the fear of long words, or maybe the fear of Titus Black. It could be the same thing. Fear, the fear of long words. And you got a long word to describe it. There are all kinds of fears, fascinating fears. You know what? The truth is, there are reasonable fears. There are unreasonable fears. All of life can be divided into those two things. Yes, we have a God who loves us, who cares about us and wants the best for us. Recently, someone posed this idea to me, saying, I wonder if we talk about the love of God so much that the fear of God is lost in the shadows. Maybe. There is no doubt that God loves us. There is no doubt that we can take comfort and joy in the presence of God. But never let it be said that there is not the part of God that says, if necessary, we should fear God. Look at the text, if you will, that was just read from Hebrews chapter 10. And I want you to notice with me something about this text that I think will help us to see what God wants us to know. Number one, he says, those who don't fear God should. Notice verse 30, or verse 26. If we sin willfully. There are some people who absolutely should fear God. having the idea of quaking, terror, afraid. Those who sin willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth. There are people today who absolutely should be afraid of the God of heaven, because the truth of God is in front of them. There it is. But they put it behind them. They sin willfully. I don't believe that God is meaning for us to think in this passage that every time we sin, it is a willful thing before God. Sometimes we get caught in a situation and we're overcome, I understand. But there are also times when the direction of our lives at that moment is absolutely to sin. We get caught up in something, and it's not a spur of the moment. It's not a sudden occurrence. It is something that we just do, and we're not supposed to think, therefore, that there's no way that we can ever come back from that. But I think he's talking about a lifestyle here. He's talking about those people who have the truth of God in front of them, but they choose to put it behind them if they sin willfully. Now, why should they be afraid of God? Number one, they should be afraid of God because in that state, the sacrifice for sins given for them is not effective for them. They've rejected it. Anyone who is in a condition, in a situation where the truth of God has been placed behind and you are moving forward without it, the sacrifice of Jesus is not effective for you at that moment, in that condition, because you have rejected it. That's what he's saying. It is possible for us to get caught up in and live in and be in a situation where we continue doing something that we know we should not. But we might say to ourselves, I have a long time. I'll get out of it someday. Be afraid, because in that condition, Jesus, who died for the whole world, that blood available is not effective because you've pushed it away, the writer says. Number two, be afraid because judgment is coming. Judgment is coming. Judgment day, facing the judgment scene of God, is on the horizon. It's going to come. There are a lot of people who are involved in something that is undercover and secretive, and they don't want anybody to find out. And in the back of their minds, they're thinking, one day it's probably going to happen. One day I'm probably going to be found out. In fact, some in the police force say there are people who want to get caught. They're involved in something and they want to get caught. Subconsciously, it is eating them alive, and they want to get caught. There is the day of judgment that is on the horizon. Be afraid. If you have pushed God to the side, he says, be afraid. Number three, be afraid of the wrath of God. Yes, I know God is love and God is good, but God is also wrath. In Romans chapter 1 and in verse 18, the writer says, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth. There it is, put it behind you, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. I think there are two facets to the wrath of God. One, we can see the wrath of God every single day. Because God, who made us, who created us, who owns us, and who loves us as people, not just in this room, but in the universe, God, that God, allows us to destroy ourselves if we want to. How hard is it for a parent to sit back and watch a child destroy himself or destroy herself? How hard is that? Doesn't it just rip you apart? Wouldn't it just tear you up? Don't you try all you can to stop it, to fix it? Even parents sometimes end up enabling them because they want so badly for them not to destroy themselves. What about God? He made us. We are all His children. Don't you think He pleads with us not to destroy ourselves? And yet His wrath is that He allows us to. But number two, the wrath of God is probably more in our image, in mind, when we think about what's coming on that judgment day. When He casts all that is unrighteousness into eternal condemnation and a flaming fire. The wrath of God. If we push God to the side, be afraid. Be afraid. Because there's no way to be saved by the blood of Jesus while you're in that state. Judgment is coming when the final wrath of God will be revealed. But number two in this passage, I think He is saying, those who fear God shouldn't. That is, today, if you are a child of God and you are afraid of God, you shouldn't be. There's no need to be. One, the sacrifice of Jesus is effective in your life. You are a child of God. John 3 and verse 18. Whoever believes is not condemned. But He says to the other group, whoever does not believe in me and Him who sent me is condemned already. If you are a child of God today, you don't need to be afraid of God. For His sacrifice through Jesus has made you whole. Don't quake and shiver and shake. Be excited that you don't have to be afraid of God. Number two, you don't need to be afraid of God because you are not coming into judgment. John 5 and verse 24. What I think we fail to realize is, even though there is a great day of judgment coming, the judgment aspect is left for those who are not His, not for His people. There's no need to be judged. John 5, verse 24. They don't come into judgment. You don't need to be afraid. There's no impending something. Maybe you, like I, have lived for many years thinking that judgment scene is something like this. The big screen's going to pop up, and my name is going to be called, and before all people who have ever lived, God's going to show a movie of all of my secrets so everybody will know. That's not the presentation in Scripture. Christians don't have to fear judgment. If the sacrifice of Jesus is effective in your life, all of that's been removed. He's not going to dredge it up again and recall it and make us live through it again. There's no need to be afraid of the judgment of God. Therefore, third, there's no need to be afraid of the wrath of God. For Romans 8:1 says, there is therefore no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. You don't need to fear the wrath of God. I'm afraid sometimes we give the image to children that God is this big ogre who is sitting up there with some kind of a lightning bolt, just waiting for them to mess up so he could throw it at them. Children of God don't need to walk around thinking the wrath of God is constantly on them, ready to destroy them at any moment. You see, this passage says those who don't fear God should, but those who fear God shouldn't. No need to be afraid unless there is a need to be afraid. Finally, I think this all means that fear is good. Fear is good. Listen to the words of Moses as he talked to the children of Israel before entering the promised land in Deuteronomy chapter 6, beginning in verse 20. When your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the testimonies, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed signs and wonders before our eyes, great and severe, against Egypt, Pharaoh, and all his household. Then he brought us out from here, that he might bring us in to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to observe all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. That it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to observe all these commandments before the Lord our God as he has commanded us. If you recall, during the time of the plagues, the first four, the children of Israel faced them as well as the Egyptians. You ever thought about that? Why would God put plagues on his own people? There was a separation made so that after that, only the Egyptians felt them. I think he tells us right here. He had them experience those things so that they, and then they could teach their children to fear God, to understand his power, to understand the seriousness of the relationship he calls us to. You see, fear is good. It keeps us alert. It keeps us focused. It keeps us heading in the right direction. That's what this text says. Fear is a good thing. Not fear that says I'm totally afraid and I'm quaking in my boots and I can't move. You know, that debilitating fear, paralyzing fear. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fear that says, I understand the seriousness of the situation. And because of that, I'm going to fulfill my responsibility. But in that fulfillment, I'm not afraid because I understand the promises of God. And I appreciate that He will honor those promises because God gave a sacrifice so that I don't have to be concerned whether I can be forgiven. And I'm not going to be judged. And the wrath of God, I don't have to live with it every day. But if you're not faithful, if you're not a child of God, if you are not walking with Him, if His life is not your life, if everything else takes precedent over the relationship that you have with Him, be afraid. For He will do what He says. Though I don't want us to walk around being afraid of God, I want all of us right now to consider, am I in a condition where I don't have to be afraid of God? If so, praise God. If not, then listen to God and decide, I don't want to be afraid anymore. And I want to have the respect and honor for Him that I should. How many times have you heard a child say in his adult years, I knew and still know that my dad could take me down. Even though physically, maybe he can't, but I fear him. Physically? Does that mean you're afraid? No. It means I honor and respect who He is. That's what God wants. And if you don't have that today, you need it. That's one reason why we're here, to encourage us to find this relationship with God. Today, can we help you? Are you ready to come into a relationship where you don't need to be afraid anymore? You can be baptized into the life of Jesus. And in doing so, you don't need to be afraid. Today, if you're not faithful, we want you to get right with the Lord. Can we help you today while we stand and sing together?